Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Sox on Tap.
Tony, my first reaction is just fuck yes, let's go.
Sox versus the Twins. That's where it all starts. It all starts taking care of business in-house in the Central Division.
That's right, I'm a meatball.
You got to bring that top button swag, baby.
It is always great to beat the Cubs.
And I'm a homer, so I always say they're gonna. Dallas Keuchel Lansing got some beards that you should be afraid of.
What everybody said when he gets out there, it's me versus the other guy, and I'm going to beat him. So I just love that mentality. It's cool and fucking tough.
Steve, would you say that Tony is mad online?
I would definitely say that.
The White Sox winner.
White Sox fans, welcome in. It's the Sox on Tap post-game show. Jonnie here alongside Tony Marchese. Tony, it's big brain time. We had very, very interesting and eventful ball game today, and I'm still trying. I think my head still hurts from it.
We're just trying to figure this one out. I mean, I've scrolled to Twitter, listened to the NBC post-game show. I listened a little bit to the ESPN radio post-game show. Johnny, I'm having a hard time with this one. I really am. And this is going to be a tough show to get through as we try and make sense of everything that took place today.
Yeah, right. Obviously, there's a lot of headliners here and really hot button issues here. And we'll definitely get to those, break those down. It's interesting. I think we actually have a couple perspectives that I didn't really consider too much before you and I were kind of brainstorming before. So I'm excited to get to those. But other than that, Tony, I think for me, the most overall kind of overarching thing is just another game in which you finally score some runs, and because offense has just been an issue all year. And then in those games where you do score a plethora of runs, 9's a good chunk of runs, you're giving up just as many and more. And we've seen it against Cleveland, that the whole meltdown on like that game a couple of weeks back. We've seen it at other junctures throughout this year. And that just frustrates me to no end because it's like, like our guy Sean Roberts says, it's always something.
It is always something, Johnny, and Sockside Mike's in here. Well, we're going to take some comments coming up here soon. But, I mean, dude, it is always something. And this day as a White Sox fan, Johnny, before we get into anything else, this day as a White Sox fan starts off just the same way we're sitting right here. You get news before this game that Eloy Jimenez's rehab stint has stalled out or whatever. I'll get into this one here real quick before we talk about this ball game, Johnny. Rick Hahn said that this isn't a setback. It's, just a slowdown or a little delay. I don't know how lawyers can make things sound, like not what they are. But, Rick Hahn doesn't think that this is a setback, but he also doesn't think Eloy's injury prone either. So we got that going for us. I mean, the day started shitty. Then you see the White Sox come out, score 4 runs before the Dodgers do. Things are feeling good. But, man, like, I want your thoughts on the Eloy thing before we get into the ballgame. Just real quick here.
Right. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one because like you said, I mean, there's always a lot of lawyer speak involved. Honestly, my thoughts going back from the beginning of it, I thought it was a little early for him to even be starting a rehab assignment when they had said he was going initially. So I gotta say, I can't say I'm completely shocked by this, but you would think that with a guy that's had repeated ailments, that they would take this a little bit slower from the get-go. Obviously, it's great. You want to get everybody back as soon as humanly possible, especially with the way things are going. But I thought it was a little rushed from the get-go. And I think then you're seeing a consequence of that here in this setback, because now he has to wait 5 days before he can begin another one, because that's just the formal, transactional terms for it.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you thought it was early. I didn't really put that in perspective too much here, Johnny, and obviously want the team to get back fully healthy as soon as possible. Maybe he's rushing a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's why Rick Hahn says it's not a setback, but it's just one of those things. As we said, it's always something, and that's why I had to bring it up, because that was the topic of conversation before today's game started.
Maybe it is technically by Rick's standards here. If we're going, this is big brain time after all, right? This is the name of stuff. Yeah. If it's big brain time from their original timeline that they set right after the injury, before they're even close to him, probably before the surgery right after the surgery happened, before he's even close to walking again. with that timeline, maybe it still lines up, and that's why he can technically claim it's not a setback in lawyer speak. Maybe that's what he's going for there.
Who knows? Not in his brain right now.
Yeah, we're in big brain time here. It's big brain time with Sox on Tap here on this very, very eventful Thursday. That was the first one there, Eloy. Now let's talk a little bit about this game. And Tony, it wasn't all bad. I know the end result, yes, it was all bad. It was another loss for the White Sox. Anytime that happens, it's not good. It's not great, Bob. But like you'd mentioned, White Sox put 4 on the board before the Dodgers even score. We got heard from a country that we haven't in a long while. Josh Harrison starting things off with a double, leadoff triple in that third inning, and then Danny Mendick able to bring him home on an RBI ground out there. That should have been a good omen for today, especially what happened in the following innings with White Sox able to add on 3 more and string together hits, because that was something that I think they finally started doing Sunday in Tampa Bay, and you just wanted to see that finally click into full gear. So it was nice to see a taste of it at least.
It was, Johnny, and you know what? Just go back. I mean, you start this series, you shut the Dodgers out. I mean, you come out of Tampa, you have a little bit of momentum, and once again, this team they grab some momentum over the course of a couple of ball games, and then you start to run into some things. I thought from the beginning of this game, when we're dealing with this 4-run lead, you see a crooked number, like, okay, this might be good. I mean, Dylan Cease is kind of cruising through some stuff, looked really, really crisp in the early going. And, we'll get to the unraveling point, but up until then, man, like you started to think, hey, I've got this series against the Dodgers. You just took a series against Tampa Bay. This is the last day of the hardest stretch of your schedule. You're looking really good in the early going of this ball game to really come out of this thing and be like, as a White Sox fan, like, wow, we just made it through the toughest stretch. Now we get to kind of get into that portion of the schedule where you can kind of rack up some wins here. And, things felt good. I was on a high note when we were up 4-0.
Yeah, no, I was too. Because early on things were crisp for the most part, Tony. And that unraveled fairly quick, as you talk about with this point here. But that's just an overarching theme for the season. Very few, as our guy NWS Steve likes to say, clean, crisp ball games this year. And that's an issue. I want to win clean, crisp ball games because that's what good baseball teams do. And right now, the White Sox are just mediocre. They're just middling, right? You can see it in their record.
Would you say they're mired in mediocrity?
Yeah, right. They are, and that's exactly what Rick Hahn wanted to get out of when we embarked on this whole house building project, right?
Yes.
I'm
still looking for a lawyer to sue the contractor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We had a good comment come through here from Zach, and I think it's a good starting point for when we talk about this thing unraveling. It says TLR wasn't the only contributor to the loss. Obviously, we'll get to him. There are much to say about him later. But continuing on from Sockside Mike, he says, let's not forget the start of the spiral was Berger's defensive mistake that cost 5 runs in the grand scheme of things. Yes, this should not be overlooked. I know the more hot button talked about issue in the media, and rightfully so, because Tony's the one that's got to meet with the media and all that. I understand that. But when you're talking on the field, things that contributed to the White Sox downfall today, it's Jake Berger at third base. And man, this is such a conundrum, Tony, because I love his bat, and hell, he homers again to help try and, get back from some of these mistakes. But when you're having these balls that are, let's be honest, probably plays made by Yohan Moncada, it's tough to watch. And you're just putting that extra stress on the arm when you're talking about, oh, yeah, sure, Tony should have gotten someone up earlier to get Cease out of there in that 5th inning. But he doesn't get to that point if Berger makes some plays here.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Jake Berger, this is his, he played a little bit last year, but this is his first foray into Major League Baseball. There's going to be mistakes made on defense. There's going to be mistakes made at the plate. But overall, Jake Berger has shown up here and done what Yohan Moncada is supposed to be fucking doing every day in the lineup every damn day. And that's the biggest problem here is you've got your superstar guy who can make that play on defense sitting on the bench, fucking laughing with his teammates and not giving a shit about what's going on.
His bat's ice cold. Yeah.
Well, his bat's ice cold.
That's a reason, but why?
But, he's coming in as a defensive. He played in the game the other day. I don't know if they're resting his legs, whatever it is. there's something wrong here where you have Jake Berger
Yeah.
getting most of the start. Is Yoan Moncada a platoon player at this point, Johnny? Because that's what it fucking feels like.
Dude, honestly, with him and Yaz, that's what it feels like, just with the performance to date. That has basically been, they haven't been the best options on some days. It's like you'd think that you'd never even like fathom that as a White Sox fan, right? Coming into the season, I would, not ever even consider that. But with the way it's gone down, that's seriously what it feels like at this point.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's
Scott Moreno says hungover probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This just it bothers me. But let's get into Jake Berger's mistake here.
Yeah,
he's gonna have those plays happen to him. It could happen to anybody. It's really unfortunate that this is the play that unravels it. Obviously, the response from Jake is go out and hit a home run. I mean, that's kind of fucking cool and tough if you ask me. Johnny, like he knows about it, and I think Berger overall, yeah, he knows what he did. He owned it. He went back to try and make up for it. There was another play later on in the game where he kind of bowed. You see him run. He knows he's a gamer. He's a competitor. That's what I like about Jake Berger. Obviously, he knows that unraveled because of that play. And, sometimes that's going to happen to you on the ball field.
Yeah.
The most important thing is your response to it and how you recover from it and where you go from there. Honestly, man, that one just sucks.
I don't want to pile on Jake Berger here because let's just talking through a little bit of this. This is the first, the fifth inning here. We're talking. It was a strikeout to start the inning, so that's a good start. But Bellinger's single is okay, good player. Gavin Lux walks, so you're talking about Cease when but pretty solid to start, but losing command a little bit, and that would come back to haunt him a little bit later as well too. And then that's when the Berger play happens. It was technically a fielder's choice. And an error on that same play by Jake Berger that Barnes had hit. And that then moves the line along. Mookie Betts, who strikes out, but then Freddie Freeman busts things open with a double there. It's so weird that, that one instance, I think it's just odd to me when I go and look at a line. Dylan Cease at the end of the game here. 4 2/3, 6 hits, 6 runs, none of them earned. That's just like he's had some mind-blowing lines this year. I think Michael Kopech's had a few of them too, but more, I think, command on his part there. But it's just wild how one play, you got to be, this is just highlights the importance of being dialed in every single pitch, because one play can change, the whole trajectory of a game here.
That's baseball, baby. Like you just have to, if you're Dylan Cease in that scenario, man, like you have to kind of just, work over that. And that's something that if we go back a couple of years on this show, Johnny, we talked about this a little bit during the game, texting back and forth. I said Dylan Cease in the no good, very bad, horrible inning. And here we are again. And yeah, it's not 100% on Dylan Cease for not being able to get through that. Obviously, you could have been out of that inning multiple times, but you got to just find ways to limit damage, weather the storm, and get through it and keep that lead there. I heard a lot of chat back and forth. There's obviously one big Tony La Russa thing we'll talk about, but there were people who were like, why did you leave Dylan Cease in here that long? In the post-game press conference, I kind of respected the fact that, yeah, this is his inning. Who else is going to come in there? As a White Sox fan, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, yeah, this guy's got 100 pitches or whatever, but at what point did 100 pitches just really become that limit? For a starter who's out there competing, you had the 4-run lead entering. He strikes out Mookie Betts. I still agree with this. When he struck him out, I'm like, we're fucking golden here.
Yeah, I felt good after that too.
Yeah.
And I would say because I don't think it was right after this. I would have gone as soon as Freeman hit that double. I would have at least got someone up and moving. That's where I would have differed here when you're talking decision making. But that was not. And Tony stuck with it. And maybe it's a little hard headed, but he did explain that after and say that it was his inning. And in certain aspects, I agree with it a little bit, because you got to learn to, work through some of these. And I know you don't want to leave guys hanging up to dry. I'm not saying that should be the strategy there, because that's a losing strategy. But, at the same time go in with a mentality. And his pitch count was good before that. And even then in this middle juncture there, after Freeman hits that, you get someone going right away. And then if it spirals further than that, then you go send Katz out there. Then you have a little, time to talk, let this guy get loose. Then you come back, then you send Yaz out there, and then you buy yourself that time. And you can do that strategically while kind of moving it along to, like I said, buy yourself that time if you were going to be committed to him as the full inning before. So I think TLR's decision there was not soon enough to get someone up and going. But I agree with, honestly, the overall, because, Mookie Betts could have very easily done the damage there, but he gets him, a super hot hitter. And Tony, just when I'm looking at this lineup and I'm looking at all these guys, obviously the Dodgers just have a stacked lineup. Freeman didn't do shit in like the first game of the series, not much in the second, I don't think either. And then you knew it was time. You knew it was coming. You knew he was going to lay down the hammer at some point. And unfortunately,
let's not forget the Dodgers lineup either. Like, let's not forget the fact that these guys are like probably, if not the favorite in the NL, Johnny. So this is a good baseball team. This is a good baseball team they were facing, and Freddie Freeman's going to get you at least once in every series, it feels like.
Yeah, no, that was my point too, and it's also, it was just kind of like a touch and feel thing. So it's like it seemed odd when I was watching Tuesday night, and I was like, how does Freddie Freeman not done anything yet here? How they not score Tuesday night? That was wild to me. But anyway, we ended up getting through. It gets to a point where Turner adds on a single after that. Muncy doubles, and Will Smith walks, and that's when Cease finally gets the hook there. Then Matt Foster comes in, wild pitch, allows a run after that, and it's just such a momentum swing, Tony, from going up 4-0
every single time I see the wild pitch.
It's one thing if a team chips away at you, right? But it's super demoralizing when they flip the script on you.
Yeah, and that's what happened. This goes back to the "it's always something" thing that we talk about. Brutal. Chalk it up as brutal.
Yep, brutal. El Brutal. All right. Now we've unfortunately got the in between here. This is the Berger instance here. In the bottom of the fifth. Jake Berger making up for at least one of his mistakes here with an absolute shot. Tony, I just need to just comment. This guy murders baseballs. When he hits it, there's nothing cheap. There's nothing poked out to right field. He pulls them, and he hits them freaking screaming line drives.
Is he the best home run hitter on the Chicago White Sox right now? He damn well might be. The bat just plays. It has to be in the lineup. And you know what? I just talked about it earlier. That bat is probably going to continue to be in the lineup for the near foreseeable future, and I'm happy with that.
It absolutely should. And I don't think, like I said, it'd be one thing if Jake, was a complete blunder defensively and never owned up to it or tried to work towards it. It's still very, let's talk the limited action he had last year combined with a earlier, call up due to injuries and then going down to Charlotte and then now coming back up for this stint here. It's a limited small size, but obviously we can see the bat can play. And the White Sox need that, especially when you're Big Bopper, one of them in Yasmani Grandal, and then another should be in Yohan Moncada, aren't doing shit this year in terms of power production. So you absolutely need it, but I think this just kind of goes back, and this is more of an off-season topic, but it's a roster construction of having a lot of the same type of players. This is where it's biting you, man, because then you get some of the fielding issues that compound walks and yada yada, and it starts to slide downhill. But you need the bat in the lineup. I don't think anyone can deny that.
You do. And until the bat cools off, I think Jake Berger is going to be playing 5-6 days a week at the bare minimum, if not 7. He should be in the middle of this lineup almost every day at this point.
I concur. All right, let's move on to the 6th inning. And this is where the intentional walk decision. We're just going to get right to it here. Setting up Bennett Sousa replaces Matt Foster. Lux single. Sousa gets a fly out of Barnes. Mookie Betts grounds out here. This is another instance, not totally Jake Berger's fault. He does make a play here, but maybe if he could turn a double play here. We're not even talking about what's going to come next here, but just leaving that. Mookie Betts grounds out, Lux to second on that play. So you got 2 outs here in this situation. Freddie Freeman singles home Lux. Okay, 7-5 ball game. Can still limit some damage here. And now you've got Trey Turner up to the plate. Okay. Bennett Sousa gets Trey Turner 0-2. This is setting up the scenario here. And then his next is we got Freddie Freeman on first after he just singled in Lux. Wild pitch goes in the dirt, gets past Grandal. Freeman goes to second base, and then Tony La Russa makes the call. This is a 1-2 count now after that wild pitch with a man on second, 2 outs. Tony La Russa makes the call to have an intentional walk, put Turner on because a lefty was coming up, and obviously a lefty is on the mound in Bennett Sousa. So that's just the basics of it there, Tony. Right from the get-go, not looking at numbers, anything here. My common sense, just as a feel from a baseball standpoint, as a former pitcher, I would go and nibble the edges and try to get him to chase. You still got a couple to work with there at 1 and 2. That would be my first intuition there.
I would tend to agree with you, and you know, just we'll bring numbers into this in a little bit, but 1 and 2 count, right? Any baseball game, you got Trey Turner. He's a great hitter. I'm on the mound. I'm in the dugout, whatever. I'm behind the plate. I'm the catcher. I'm not giving him shit to hit the rest of this at bat. If you wind up walking him, fine. Let it play out. You got a chance to make a huge out in this baseball game by getting Trey Turner to strike out. You get out of the inning.
Try to get him to chase.
Try and get him to chase. Throw junk. Throw junk. That's what that's where my head is. Right. Maybe I'm not intentionally walking him, but I'm gonna intentionally walk this fucker by not giving him anything over the plate to hit. That's my first inkling as well, Johnny.
Because you've got at least 2 shots, 3 shots at it there, right? To be able to, you've got 3 shots at it to throw your pitch outside. He's going to try get him to chase. Maybe if you look stupid on it, great, then you're out of the inning. But either way, alas, this is a decision that was made, and then after things start to unravel further because Max Muncy comes up, took as some motivation there. Has not been great against lefties so far this year. Obviously, he's had a little bit of an injury plague stint and coming back from an injury at the end of last year. But he homers out in this one, kind of rips the Band-Aid off it, lets the bleeding happen. And 10-5 at this point there. Lopez comes in, replaces Sousa here. But this is a firestorm. And I think a lot of it was the response afterward, Tony, when you're talking about this decision. And La Russa said he kind of just dismissed it. And the combative tone of what he said was, I think, what really kind of set people off. I don't know if you were able to catch his commentary on that.
I was, Johnny. I was able to catch the entire, at least portion of his press conference. It was broadcast. Probably would have went about that a little bit differently if it were me there, but again, it's not. I think to an extent, if you go out to the media and, because he kind of questioned, like, did anybody think that was a bad decision? He knew. I'm sure he heard it from people in the dugout. I'm sure he heard it from players. I'm sure somebody walked up to him at some point and was like, man, what the fuck was that? To an extent, La Russa is, as we've learned, going to do what he's going to do over and over again. And there's so many people who are going to question him. There's not a coach in this city, Johnny, in my lifetime, really feels like, outside of like Quenville when the Hawks were winning cups, that and even he was questioned. Towards the end of this, he was everybody eventually hates the manager, right? So the manager, coach, whoever it is. I mean, you watch Matt Nagy get run out of town. We watched who was the Bulls manager that Buzz just hated. I can't even remember. Jim Boylan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. People had billboards to fire that guy. Yeah. That's just such a mentality here. And that this is totally different though. Tony La Russa, he knows how to handle the media at this point. I think he knew that they were going to come in there and try and draw a narrative. But again, on paper, common sense, this baseball situation, it just feels like so little league to me, on the surface, right? On the surface of this, it feels so common sense. And I see some comments in here.
Right.
Scott Moreno, this is the first time since 2013. There was somebody called in on the ESPN postgame show that said it never happened in the history of baseball. I've seen 17 different fucking stats for how many times that this has happened before or never happened before, because everybody's just going to throw out that information. I haven't seen anything factual yet. I haven't gone and looked, but I've heard so many different variations of how many times this has happened for. Regardless, I think that it kind of comes down to the fact that, like, this is kind of like checkmate almost from like the people who've been, wanting a different manager. I mean, I've supported Tony La Russa through most of this. I'll be honest. If you listen to the show all the time, I think it's kind of interesting because you've got a guy who, out of people who are alive, I believe he's one of the most winning managers of all time. He's won World Series. He's done more on the baseball field in the dugout for teams than pretty much anybody else that's walking on this fucking earth. But then you come to situations like this, and we'll get into numbers and his reasoning and all this other stuff, where he acts above everyone. He acts above the media. He talks about how this was, like he almost basically wrote it off like, I dare somebody to tell me that was a bad decision.
Yeah.
And to an extent, nobody's going to want to hear that. And it's only going to make the fire worse.
Right. And I wish I could just get a better explanation fully, because I want to look at these numbers. You'd say we're going to get into numbers. I want to just throw out a few here because there are some career versus recent trends here that I just want to look at. And at the end of the day, I would just go with the fucking common sense of I'm going to at least try and get this
big
guy
brain time.
I'm just going to go. Yeah, I think we're really overthinking this, but let's get into it since we're already in the debacle here, Tony. Let's get into it. This is via Joe Sheehan on Twitter. It's Trey Turner career versus lefties after 1 and 2 counts. 258, 310, 390 slash line. Now, Souza's career versus righties after 1 and 2 counts, 167, 286, 167 slash line. So obviously playing pretty damn well in Souza's favor there with the 2 strikes there. Now, when you're talking about Muncy, what he went for there, career versus left-handed pitchers. You got to remember, it's not like count transfers over. You got a fresh count here when you bring up Max Muncy. Career versus lefties, 251, 365, 492 slash line. Souza, career versus lefties, 300, 389, 367. Okay, you had some more recent ones. I believe it was John Boy that I brought up because I like the recent trends too. But I will say, like I said, I would just go back to the common sense thing and not overthink this. But for this sake of drawing out the whole situation, go ahead and read me the others.
Yeah, so John Boy actually tweeted something about an hour ago, and he said, do you know what he hits against left-handed pitching with 2 strikes? Do you know what Muncy hits against left-handed pitching? Trey Turner against lefties with 2 strikes this year and 27 at-bats. He's got 7 hits, 3 walks, has struck out 11 times, so I'm not saying that's not possible, but he's hitting 259, 333, 370. Muncy versus lefties overall this season in 40 at-bats, only has 5 hits, has walked 10 times, has struck out 8. He's hitting 125, 300, 150. So that's what they're at on the year entering that play right there.
Okay, interesting. When you're talking about the career, like I said, I don't know if career would be the best thing to go off. I mean, it does give you like a baseline to start with, but it's what have you done for me lately? How, you're only as good as your last envelope, right? All of that, that whole mentality there. And like, I want to go to the point that we had talked about so you're talking about career numbers and using that versus recency. You'd absolutely pitch Yasmani Grandal this year. Whereas at the end of last year when he came back from injury and was arguably the best hitter in baseball, no fucking way. You just put him on first base, right?
Yep. And there is that factor. I mean, if you look at this White Sox lineup right now, Yaz is the perfect example of Max Muncy, not totally, but just in that situation where it's like, here's a guy that's underperforming right now. And I think that kind of puts some of the cinematic element on it, right? So take ourselves out of the situation as White Sox fans. This is like getting stabbed. And it feels like getting stabbed because then we've got to go and deal with the whole manager situation and the walk and all this other stuff. but it's kind of cinematic if you're a Dodgers fan, right? Like you got to be sitting there going like, here's this dude who's struggled so far this year, and this just lit him up. This got him on fire. You saw Max Muncy cross home plate, very animated. It's not the first time this has happened to the White Sox. You've seen Josh Donaldson doing it. You've seen Yankees come in here and do it to us. I'm tired of getting punched like that.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
It is. It is embarrassing. I want our guys to get up and show that kind of emotion.
Yeah, no, I do too. And I just the decision to do that in and of itself, whatever. You go ahead and quantify it how you want. Like I said, I would have just stuck with the common sense and tried as Bennett Sousa. I'm trying to get that guy there, but obviously Tony La Russa didn't give him that opportunity. But I would put myself in those shoes if I were the manager. That's me. I've said that's my stance on it. But when you're talking about the implications of that, then not beyond the numbers of Turner versus Muncy stats there, it's Max Muncy obviously took exception to that. And he had a little extra fire, a little extra motivation behind him. And he had said in the whatever Sportsnet LA in their post-game interview with him, he had said, he's like, I got a little like animated there and emotional. He's like, but yeah, I definitely took that as a factor for motivation. I don't want to remember people were bitching last year about Tony La Russa saying now the Astros or Ryan Tepera's comments about the Astros is going to be different, and this and that. People said, oh no, don't go throw fuel on the fire and yada, yada, yada. And all of that. Well, this is the same thing. It just came from a different source. it threw fuel on the fire here.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a couple of comments in here that I'm reading these as they come in. Scott, thank you for saying where that came from on the CHGO postgame show. Sockside Mike, he's in a lose-lose situation with his fan base, win or lose. That's certainly an interesting take on this one. Scott Marino had a comment in here. I don't think so, Mike, if he just did things that make sense to everyone but him. I think that's kind of a hard thing to do, Scott, honestly, especially for somebody who's won that many baseball games. You kind of become hardened in your career.
I think it makes sense. I know you said he knows how to handle the media, but
I think he didn't handle the media very well today.
Right.
I think
okay.
He came out,
that's what I was going to say.
I don't think he's
not explaining this shit well.
No, he's not explaining this shit well. And I think it's something that makes this worse is because he comes out and he looks combative, but
right.
Yes, he is kind of in a lose-lose situation. I'm wondering if he knows that it was wrong, and he I don't know. I'm really curious.
I'm going to double down here.
I'm just going to double it, dude. It's like when you're like you fucking put all your chips in at the poker table, and you're looking at somebody across, like they're going to come out here and go drag you. Yeah. Your only way to not get dragged is to just look fucking confident. Like you're in that situation. All right, I lost, whatever. And sometimes people want to see the humility. They want to see them admit defeat.
Right.
Well, I would almost argue, Johnny, though, that if he comes out there and says, that was a boneheaded fucking move, that was terrible.
Yeah.
That's how you lose your locker room.
Well, this is where you're talking about lose-lose. There's no yeah, but I agree.
Lose.
There's implications beyond that. I like that you brought up the, lose your locker room sort of aspect there, but people can debate that's already been lost, right? We're not in there. If I was a fly on the wall, I could tell you more, but I'm not.
But so that's where I'm interested. That's where I'm interested.
What was it?
Johnny, I'm really interested to see what happens. What happens next? Like, is a player going to get asked about this? What are they going to say? Because it was interesting when Dave Roberts said, "Right, I'm not going to be one to question Tony La Russa." Like. I wouldn't have done that, but I'm not going to be one to question Tony La Russa. So that to me is like okay.
You might want to a little bit. I think it's healthy too.
You might want to, but I don't know. I just feel like as a fan base, not a lot of people put respect on his name because a lot of people wanted AJ Hinch here. And so I'm not trying to sit here and say that his decision today was right. I wouldn't have fucking done it. Even if I had those stats available, I probably wouldn't have done it. I just wouldn't have. It goes back to the baseball and the emotion of and what's going on in that situation.
Yeah.
One thing that I've got a problem with is, and I'll go back to situations where the White Sox have let their pitchers pitch against big hitters. Lance Lynn, Vlad Guerrero Jr., prime example number one for me, Johnny.
Last year. Yeah.
From last year. Tony La Russa let Lance Lynn go in a situation against Vlad Guerrero Jr., and it wound up very poorly. Could it have been an overreaction to stuff like that that's happened before with this White Sox crew, even last year, where we've had big pitchers go against guys that we shouldn't be going against? The pitcher's got an ego too. I feel like in this situation, like just hypothetically, if Lance Lynn's on the mound in this situation, say the game's going a little bit different, you got Trey Turner there, Lance Lynn's going to get that intentional walk call and be like, no, fuck you. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Unless Tony La Russa takes it out of his hands. And that was something that we sat here on this show and talked about and said, I want Tony La Russa to take it out of someone's hands and just call for the intentional walk in these situations. Now, 2 strikes adds a whole extra element to it.
Right.
But again, on the other side, I feel like we've had this talk before with it being completely different.
Yes, no, we have. I think just circumstances are different because each game it's all subjective, Johnny. It's all about the recent trends. It's all about the the emotion of the game, the flow of the game. Like I said, that was obviously a motivator for Max Muncy there, and the 2 strikes. I can't get over that. But we were talking about those decisions there. You talked about taking the ball out of his hands. I talk about physically taking the ball out of his hands. And Scott made a good comment. Scott Moreno in the comments here. Souza shouldn't have been pitching there in the first place. I had thought that too against this lineup. Sure, if you're playing the Royals, the Tigers, I could do with Bennett Souza. He could probably, get his way through that. When you're playing a murderer's row lineup like the Dodgers, I wouldn't have gone to Bennett Souza there. That's just me, though. From the get-go, I would have, elected elsewhere. Honestly, it's
how much
weird.
does this team miss Garrett Crochet right now?
Right? Yeah, that's.
I just missed the SpongeBob backpack and the 100-mile-per-hour version of Garrett Crochet.
Yeah, no, and he would have been a big key contributor in these spots, and you probably would have seen him in a spot like that today.
Sockside Mike in here. This is where we need Joe Kelly. Yeah. This is where we need Joe Kelly against the Dodgers would have been really fun.
Yeah, that would have been fun to see. Damn it. Those injuries, man. All right, Tony, we drew that thing out there, but I think that was some good discussion. A lot of factors covered there when it comes to that. I will reiterate it once again and take all the numbers away, and I would have just gone with a common sense, at least off the top of my head, baseball kind of inkling. I would have tried to just get him to chase something. We've already got him now 1-2. Just try to get him to chase something. Maybe get lucky. And if you don't, okay, then that's whatever, on to the next one. And it was the first base is open anyway. And you got to force. Okay, whatever. Let's move on. Tony, the White Sox did make a little bit of rally at the end of this game here. It was kind of interesting to see because you kind of feel, like I said, pretty demoralizing with that 3-run shot by Muncy, making it, doubling up the lead, making it 10-5. But this is kind of just, it's good to see him rally, but at the same time, we're not into silver linings. And also, it's just another thing of, the offense can finally score here, but it's when it's almost out of reach. Or, like I said, we're finally putting up runs, but also giving up all of these. However way you want to look at that there, this late inning rally, getting 2 back in each the 8th and the 9th inning made it exciting during the time there, but overall I think kind of lets me down even more.
It does, because this team can get themselves back in striking distance so well, but I mean, let's take some of the defensive stuff out of it. Sox could have scored probably 5-6 more runs today. Given a couple of extra opportunistic hits, Johnny, and this ball game would be much different. I'm still waiting for my boy Gavin Sheets to start hitting home runs. I wanted the Gavin Sheets magic to end this ball game.
Oh man, that would have been sweet.
It would have been sweet. I would be having the best post-game show of my life if that were the case. But there's still, I think, work to do with this offense and getting some bats going and getting, other guys going. Yohan Moncada looks putrid. Yasmani Grandal needs to pick it up. I think Jose Abreu needs to leave the yard, a couple of times a week. Maybe you can take some tips from Jake Berger on how to swing a hot bat right now. Gavin Sheets has just not been what you want to see. There's a lot of people calling for him to go down. Up until that triple from Josh Harrison, there's work to be done there. There's too many automatic outs in this lineup right now still.
I will say a guy that can help lead the way is AJ Pollock, though. He has been he really stepped it up, especially against his former team here with the run scoring doubles that he was able to lace out there. So I like seeing that from him. But like all those names that you'd mentioned there, it's a whole group thing. It's not just on one guy. I think Yaz and Yohan are probably the biggest two that you go and you circle in there, right? When you're talking about expectations versus performance level, which is actually sorry, I had to get to the ground there to show where their performance level is. But it's the role guy stepping up too. It's the role guy stepping up too when you're talking about Gavin Sheets, because you and me have shared some frustrations on here because I want to see the long ball, and I saw it last year and I got a taste of it, and I was like, damn, it's like this is some lefty power which we've lacked for so long. I don't know exactly what the fix is for specifically for some of those guys, man. I thought Yaz would have just had a turnaround or just started walking more to help get himself back into it, but that's not even the case. And it's just, I know we did have a single today that did drive in a couple. So I guess we're looking for, granted, I think that was like an infield kind of knock around job there, but still, regardless, it was like that little flick job out in Tampa Bay Sunday. You got to start driving the ball with these guys, and that's all I can say, especially that. And Yohan, if we could just get in the lineup consistently here, then we, obviously we want Jake Berger's bat in the lineup here. But man, how are you going to get hot if you can't stay in the lineup consistently?
You're not, and that's the other thing too. And I just want to bring up once again, this is a Lurie Garcia slander-free zone, so we're not on Lurie's back. But I'll just give you the floor here.
Well, he just shouldn't have been batting leadoff last night. That's all. That was just a TLR decision that he shouldn't have been batting leadoff.
Big brain time once again.
It's big brain time here on Sox on Tap. Yeah,
I don't understand it. I don't understand it, man. I don't understand it because he makes it too easy to just question things sometimes. I think when we look at this offense as a whole, you've faced some really good teams with some really good pitching. The Dodgers came in here and threw two guys that I believe had spotless records. And I'm not going to go into pitcher wins and losses as a valuable stat, Johnny. But I do think when you start to get guys 7-0, 9-0 in their decisions, it normally means that they've pitched well throughout the course of the season. The Sox offense, they're not at full strength. They just went through some of the toughest portions of the schedule. I hope that when we're talking in 2 weeks, some of these other teams that they're playing with, less, I guess, playoff ready pitching staffs ignites this White Sox offense. That's my hope down the road here, is that we're talking about the team scoring 10 runs and winning, because even if you make an error, this all-star caliber lineup doesn't go fucking bury you.
Yes, that's a good point. And I was talking about this with some people that were just sitting by me. I didn't know the guys, but nice fellas at the game the other night. And they just asked, what are you optimistic, pessimistic right now? I said, just leaning a little bit pessimistic here because of just the, not performing up to expectations and the lack of offense total, and especially from some of those big guys, issues that we've laid out in the show, Tony. But then I also said, now, if you want to go and look at the other side here, what we're playing, yeah, sure, it sucks. You don't want to be under 500 for third place for a team that's supposed to have, championship aspirations, right? I don't think anyone's deterred from that goal, or at least that was the goal entering the season, and that should be the benchmark. We're 26, 29 now, but like you had said, you were just in that real tough stretch schedule. Probably was one of the hardest via that graph that Jay Kuda put up the other day, one of the hardest strength of schedules, and now it gets to be one of the easiest down the stretch. So sure, call them the bum slayers if you want, but at the same time, if this stretch had come, the harder stretch had come at the end of the season, and you already built up a base, would you be talking about this a little bit differently? Sure, you might have some concerns about how you match up individually with some of these teams, but either way, if you had built yourself up that base with, some bum slaying early in the year and the strength of schedules are flipped here, I think the tone would just be a little different surrounding the team, don't you?
I do. And you know what, Johnny, I just want to go back to last year, right? the Sox, I don't know what the record is that they finished, but they handled the Yankees fairly well. They handled Tampa Bay really well. Toronto was a thing. You got to win against the Dodgers. Obviously, I feel like they should have taken 2 out of 3 here. But when I was looking at this series going into it, before you rattled those off in Tampa, I mean, there were people who were sitting here, even NWI Steve. I'll say Steve, you probably would have thought that they could have went on a 9-game losing streak over these past couple series. And you know what?
Sure, looked like it at the beginning of Toronto,
justifiably
right?
so. Justifiably so. There's no way that the White Sox, as fans, people sitting here right now, weren't just incredibly nervous about how far this team could fall through it. You get to this point of the season, the Sox have played the good teams good enough, in my opinion, better than last year. So they did a lot of bum slaying last year in the first half of the season. They built up this divisional lead. Then all of a sudden, the question throughout the rest of the year, the narrative was the White Sox can't beat good teams. We're past that point. Yeah, there's going to be some playoff teams that are on the schedule. Right now, the focus needs to shift to just absolutely fucking pummeling the rest of the AL Central. And that's a far easier task for this team than going up against the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Rays and all these other teams that they've already handled. So you know what? If we want to get mad about, walking this guy on a 1-2 count, that's fine. That absolutely matters in the grand scheme of things. I think a lot of people's ultimate fear is that Tony La Russa is going to take a game out into his own hands in the playoffs that's going to cost his team run. And that's a viable concern. Even as somebody who supports Tony La Russa, that's a viable concern that I have as well, because guess what? I'm going to have to get on this show afterwards and fucking talk about it. So I'm just as nervous as everybody else. But at the end of the day, I think right now, the real test here for this White Sox team, and it's an easier test than what they had to go through over the last month. The real test for this team is go beat up on your division, get that lead back, and run through it. This is where it matters.
So I will say that I agree. The methodology here, though, I'm going to get to the methodology of how you do that. It's making a concerted effort, though, because I feel like it was taking a little bit lightly. And granted, you're still easing into the season. There were some injuries at the beginning. Shit, we're still without some guys now due to injuries, but it was some pitiful performances outside of the first series against Detroit. Handled them pretty well, very beginning of the year, right? And then you came back and you had some mishaps against KC. You had some mishaps against Cleveland. That's where some really ugly plays started there. So making it a concerted effort to really turn that around, that's going to be huge. And how you do that is by out slugging these teams. So you can negate some walks. You can negate some guys not having their best stuff that day. You can negate some errors. And that brings me to a point here. I've been on this train. Sockside Mike asked, we have a great debate going in here in our comments. Make sure you subscribe on Tap Sports Set on YouTube so you can chime in these comments here. Great debate, or not debate, conversation going on here in these comments. Sockside Mike says, can we please finally put Jake, meaning Jake Berger, at second? Scott Moreno responds, says, Mike, I agree. We definitely are going to have to live with some errors and double plays and not being turned, but I think his bat is needed. Thank you. I am totally with that, and I agree with Mike's follow-up here. I want Moncada's third base D and Berger's bat for second. Boys, that fully sums up what I want to see there, and that's how you get both of them. Moncada back in the lineup consistently to try and get him going there to get the offensive production out of his bat, and then you get the defense there, even if the bat's not going right away. And then, obviously, Berger's bat all hot as hell. You keep it in there, and I don't want to hear that Josh Harrison hit a triple today, so he bought himself, X amount more at bats here. You could still use them sparingly, but right? Just like people had bitched about Lurie's usage from last year and early this year, right? Sparingly in the utility role, in the guys need a day off, a guy's banged up, a guy has cramps at the end of the game, that kind of role. That's how I want to see Josh Harrison used if he's going to be kept around at all. So that's we got another comment here. Boys, we have Timmy and Lance coming back. Timmy sets the tone. Tony, I know Lance Lynn got roughed up in his last rehab assignment start, but he said he's ready to be back in Chicago next week. And I am so ready. I can already hear the ZZ Top ringing in my ears. I cannot wait.
You know what? I've refrained from listening to ZZ Top all season, and this might be one of the White Sox problems, and that's because we haven't seen Lance Lynn pitch. So once we get back to the Gots to get paid days and the cool and tough sounds of ZZ Top on Lance Lynn Day, I think I'm going to feel better. It's just going to be a good time to see Lance Lynn back on the mound. I'm not too worried about him getting roughed up in AAA. I think that, Lance likes big games. There's no way that he's enjoying himself in Charlotte. We know he's a South Sider, so we need to get him back on the South Side with his team, with the boys, and rolling. So I'm excited to see Lance Lynn back. That's all I've got to say about that.
No, I am too. And this is all part of things that will, hopefully help this team turn around. It's not a given. Nothing's a given in this league. But when you look at strength of schedule and you look at these guys down here that Sockside Mike has mentioned coming back, Tim Anderson seems to be on schedule. They said he looked good swinging today. Lance Lynn obviously made that last rehab start down in Charlotte. Those guys are starting to come back. They're single-handedly aren't going to be the answer there, but you may have, Tony, I think you put it best too. Sometimes it's about, who you're playing there, and it's going to be some maybe level of playoff caliber pitchers that you'll see given the strength of schedule down the stretch there that could help get this offense going, because they need any help they can get to get the offense going consistently.
It's just time to build confidence, man.
Yep. It is
time to build the confidence.
Yep. So, all right, Tony, final thoughts from this one. We aired out a lot here on Big Brain Time Sox. Have you got any final big brain thoughts to close the episode with?
Final big brain thoughts. TLR's open to criticism. Bring it. I mean, he's already listened to fire TLR chants. I'm not happy about the decisions that were made today. They led to a loss. I don't think that anybody in that clubhouse does. Sometimes your big brain bites you. It just happens. I really don't have much else to say. I think this was kind of less egregious than the rule play that we had a large discussion on this show last year with the, bringing runners on second base and extra innings and all that back and forth.
It's actually funny to think back on that.
It's funny to think back on that one, because here we are with like a real heated baseball debate topic.
Right. I think a more worthy debate here.
It is a more worthy debate. And guess what? Like, here we go on this. It's just, unfortunate situation. Sox end up losing from it. Your manager did kind of contribute to it. And guess what? At the end of the day, the voices and the people who support this team are going to be loudest. And I fully respect anybody who wants to voice their opinions on it. We care about this team. I know you do. We get on this show. We talk about it. We give our opinions. And, at the end of the day, the Sox lost. None of us feel good. Nobody that played in the game felt good. I don't feel good. I'm mad. This is just shitty right now. I'm trying to think of ways that it can be better, because we're going to be back here talking about it, and I want victory beers again. I want to maximize the victory beers throughout the rest of the summer and have a Vaughn gone summer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Big brain time here. It's that, like you had mentioned, I think that obviously there's no segments in the schedule outside of your all-star break here, but that was the end of your real tough stretch, right? That we had outlined. NWI Steve wrote a nice piece a while back at the very beginning of this stretch. I believe when they first went to Boston, I think it was when that whole kind of thing started there. So there's no real actual segments there, but how great would it be to just kick off the, easy stretch of the schedule, so to say, by sweeping the Texas Rangers? So I go and I look at our records, and they're pretty damn similar right now. I don't know if Texas has to complete a ball game tonight, Tony, but we're right there. I think they were like 25, 28. We're like 26, 29 here, something like that. I would love nothing more than to show them that we are a better team than them, because we are. You can go and look at it. But at the same time, the record says you're about similar right now. Go and prove that this weekend here at home. Three games that, I know you got Davis Martin in game one.
Don't let Steele Walker beat you.
Right. Yeah. Steele Walker. So, yeah. So that's all I've got. That's all I've got for this one, listeners. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate everyone who chimed in on the live stream comments. Make sure you subscribe to OnTap Sportsnet on YouTube so you can get in on the conversation. We can pull these up, have a nice discussion about it on the Sox on Tap post-game show. Go and find our work at ontapsportsnet.com, where you can find all Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Give us a follow on social media at Sox on Tap, at OnTap Sportsnet. Until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.